top Democrat and the top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee now supporting an investigation into the CIA hit squads and whether Vice President Cheney concealed their existence from Congress. It's time to look at what we know about the Bush-Cheney assassination teams. Our third story tonight, how Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld gave themselves the luxury of total secrecy, free from congressional oversight, still failed to get Osama bin Laden or roll up al-Qaeda, and instead screwed up not one but two assassination attempts that we know of. Here then in our third story, what we do know. On September 11th, 2001, the CIA already had a list of high-value al-Qaeda targets. The Washington Post reporting that the agency's Counterterrorism Center Chief of Operations suggested creating hit teams to take out those targets in the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. On September 17th, 2001, President Bush signed a presidential finding allowing the CIA to kill or capture al-Qaeda members anywhere in the world. James Risen's 2006 book, State of War, reported that the CIA created a covert paramilitary unit codenamed Box Top to go around the world and target terrorists. Box Top began training but was disbanded. Quote, the agency's top management got cold feet over the prospect of turning the paramilitary unit loose. A former senior U.S. intelligence official telling NBC News tonight CIA Director Tenet killed the program in 2004 in part because of a lack of targets. From the Washington Post, quote, some officers worried that the CIA would not be very adept at assassination. We'd probably shoot ourselves, another former senior CIA official said. Not so at the Pentagon. The British newspaper The Guardian reporting the military picked up the assassination ball and sent killing teams into the field, where they actually killed people. The Guardian reports several assassinations. Al-Qaeda? Presumably, but not exclusively, possibly. American Conservative magazine reporting, quote, the secret CIA program involving a Dick Cheney cover-up consisted of dispatching assassination teams to various countries to kill individuals who were known to be Al-Qaeda? No, Al-Qaeda supporters. The first hit attempt was in Kenya, was botched, and the Delta forces had to be bailed out by the ambassador who had not been briefed on what was going on under his nose. James Risen, 2006, quote, members of an operational support element team, Rumsfeld's euphemism for hit squads, working in Latin America, killed a man outside a bar. The American personnel then failed to report the incident to the U.S. Embassy for several days. The incident has never been made public. Time now to bring in Jack Rice, former CIA officer himself, who has since become both journalist and documentarian. Welcome back, sir.
Always a pleasure.
We find ourselves with a lot of questions about why this moved from CIA to Pentagon. We know the White House had turned to former military when CIA interrogators refused to use their methods. Is it possible the same transference thing happened here, or just that Cheney and Rumsfeld wanted the secrecy that they would gain from the laws, giving them greater leeway for the military covert ops as opposed to the CIA ops?
Well, I think Rumsfeld was a bit of a control freak anyway, and I think if he had his choice, he would have found a way to absorb both the CIA and maybe State Department inside the Pentagon anyway. So the fact that he decided he wanted this done in-house isn't exactly shocking, now is it?
No. James Risen reporting here that Rumsfeld chafed at CIA ops, special ops taking the lead in Afghanistan, wanted his own hit squads all over the globe. Lines up with what you said. Apparently he got them, but he and Cheney and Bush still failed to get bin Laden, still failed to knock out al-Qaeda, and killed two people in these murky and questionable circumstances. This was the administration of military competence?
Yeah, this really says something now, doesn't it? It's got to make you feel good when you realize all of the things that we missed doing, all of the failures that took place. And I mean, the biggest part of this we have to realize for the American people is that this was all done in our names. And so every failure that was created caused an entire blood feud for every family that was ultimately murdered here, who's now stepping up and trying to find ways to go after Americans who are in the field. Great. We're feeling pretty good about that, aren't we?
In addition to reporting that targets included al-Qaeda supporters, this American Conservative magazine also says the CIA plan was to use fake passports, smuggle weapons, even into friendly countries, using diplomatic pouches. Is it possible that even this, amount of cloak and dagger was too much even for the CIA?
We're starting to wonder, isn't it? When you look at the number of failures here, and then, of course, what you're doing is you're sort of comparing the competency of what happens at the Pentagon versus what happens at Langley. Right now, they're sort of fighting for the bottom slot. I don't think anybody necessarily wants to be there, but when you're actually debating on which one is doing a worse job, that's a pretty scary place to be. For us, I mean.
Yeah. The person who first killed this program program was George Tenet in 2004. That's pretty much established. But Senator Kit Bond, I guess reverting a little bit to James Bond here, he is the ranking Republican on the Intelligence Committee. He asked the Washington Post yesterday about Panetta killing it, quote, "Why would you cancel it? If the CIA weren't trying to do something like this, we'd be asking why not." Do we not have to, in turn, wonder whether if Bond had been briefed on this, he might have kept this alive and somehow made it successful?
Yeah, you would really wonder, don't you? I mean, in the end, what's really sad here is that this has become political. Everybody's trying to find some angle to say that it was the other party's fault, and that's really the problem here. I mean, this goes back to George Tenet for sure, certainly, and it goes through every other CIA director since. And so the failures continue. If this had been briefed in the first place, could this have been a better operation? Could this have been a more successful operation? Could this have been a more effective operation? How about this, hypothetically? We could actually not kill the wrong people. Maybe if we killed the right people, that wouldn't be such a bad idea. And actually, if we did it by the law, maybe that's the best idea of all.
The last point that keeps striking me on this, I keep bringing it up, people go, that's not important. The Seymour Hersh hint at a story that he was hoping to develop about, that he mentioned earlier in the year at the University of Minnesota, I guess it was, that there was a secret Cheney assassination team that operated through the Pentagon, through special operations inside the military, and that it involved sending in assassins around the world and not letting the station chiefs know, not letting the CIA in on it. Is it possible that he was running two at once, or are we talking about the same thing, snapshots of which have been taken at different times in history?
It's a really good question. I mean, I'm a big fan of Cy Hersh, and I've interviewed him a couple of times on this myself. And the thing is because these are all quarantined in special little spots, you never really know. But this really highlights a broader point. If one side doesn't know what the other side is doing, if the diplomats don't know, if the ambassador doesn't know, if the station chiefs don't know what's going on, and you send in a special operation from the Pentagon, these guys could actually kill one another and not even realize which one is the bad guy. That in itself is a disaster waiting to happen.
Not to say nothing of it being the plot of several Peter Sellers Inspector Clouseau films. Jack Rice, the former CIA officer, former prosecutor, now a media type like myself. Great, thanks, Jack.
You bet.